Okay. Hi, Ala.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you today about your experiences as an OT, as an Arab OT. I think it's really important to hear from a clinician like yourself. So, welcome to the group.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
It feels good to hear the letter Ayin when someone's calling my name. So it's a good start.
Yes, yes, of course. Um, okay, so let me introduce everyone who's listening to this to Ala. Ala is an occupational therapist. He is in acute care in Los Angeles, California. He's been in OT for a very long time, over 13 years. He's been born and raised in Ohio to two Lebanese immigrants, and I'll let him talk more about that. He received his OT training in Philadelphia, and he is an author, a union activist, an educator, a DEI consultant, and the co-founder of No Bias Group. So you wear a lot of hats, so I can't wait to dig in.
Yeah,
So
thank you so much.
so welcome to this. So let's start with the first question, so we can unpack all of this. So, Ala, can you please tell us a little bit about your Arab identity? You briefly told us that you are from a Lebanese descent. So, can you tell us a little bit about that identity and how
Sure,
do you feel about that?
sure. So yeah, my parents moved here, I want to say 78 or 79 to a city called Toledo, Ohio, which has a predominantly large Lebanese population.
Mhm.
Um, and had I'm one of four kids. I'm one of four boys, and we were born and raised in a town just outside of Toledo called Oregon, Ohio.
Mhm.
Really small town. So I identify as Lebanese. I was raised in a Muslim Sunni household, and my dad worked as a union factory worker. He built those Jeep Cherokees and Wranglers,
Mhm.
and my mom was a housewife, and they ran a business as well. I went to college, undergrad in Toledo, and then decided to move to Philadelphia for OT school. Um, and it was a, a, a kind of a cool experience to engage in other Arabs outside of the Lebanese culture
Mhm.
that I was so embedded in, um, both in undergrad and as I moved to Philadelphia. Um, and so it was, I thought I knew Arabic very well conversationally. And then you heard Egyptian Arabic and you heard Maghrebi Arabic and everything got a little different. Um, but it was a great learning experience. I love what I do as a therapist. So that's sort of my short recap of my Lebanese
Yeah.
identity. Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds really interesting, and I agree with you. Like you think you speak like default Arabic, and then you had everyone else with a different dialect. So it's that what keeps it like fascinating, I guess.
yeah. And there's
Uh,
differences within us, right? So that's what's so cool about culture and identity is that
right,
despite
right.
being from the same nation or from the same language speaking people, there's differences
Yeah,
among us within us.
yeah, I agree. And it's not just the language or the dialect; it's also like the culture. Like we do the same things, but we do them differently, and that I think that adds to the beauty of this culture. Right,
Absolutely.
that's great. Next, can you tell us a little bit about your professional OT life? So, like, the work, what do you do in the clinic?
Sure.
Any professional activities? And obviously, you have a lot of professional activities and
Yeah.
leadership roles. So, unpack all of that. Tell us
Okay.
all that is about you.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, not unlike a lot of other first generation immigrant kids, your parents wanted you to be medical field, lawyers, pharmacists, some sort of career where you can secure yourself and secure your family and help others. Um, and so the goal was initially medical school,
Mhm.
pre med, um, and I didn't want to have night shifts. I didn't want to have on call. I didn't want to do that. I knew I wanted to help others. And so I thought physical therapy was more of my fit. I love sports. And then I got a job as a rehab aide at an inpatient hospital in Ohio. And I discovered OT there. And I said, yeah, this is my jam. This is my thing. It's a good blend of holistic care, of the person, of the culture, and it's really personal, right? That's why I loved about the most about what I saw as OT, as I observed OT. So I decided to leave Ohio and go to Philadelphia with my girlfriend at the time, to get my master's there for OT.
Mhm.
And I did my master's there. I worked in Philadelphia for a couple of years, um, as a travel therapist. So I was just kind of bouncing around from one facility to the other. And then I decided to take that traveling gig out to California, because I was sick of the winter. I was sick of the snow. I was born and raised in it. Um, I felt like I earned my way out, you know.
Yeah.
So I came to California, and that was about almost 11 years ago.
Wow.
Um, and I did a little bit of everything. I've done home care, I've done early intervention, I've done schools, I've done nursing homes and SNF care, I've done acute care. I teach, right, like you mentioned. Um, and currently, I'm an acute care therapist at Kaiser Permanente in Los Angeles. I'm at a pretty big medical center here
Yeah.
in LA, where it's a specialized center. So I see a lot of stroke. But you know, as OTs, we're a little bit everywhere, and I'm blessed to be at a facility where we have good OT advocacy.
Mhm.
So I've seen in other hospitals in my experiences where there's not as many OTs, there's not as many consults, there's not as many referrals. We're here, we're pretty full, we're pretty busy everywhere from cardiac care to
Mm.
orthopedic care, to neuro care, like I mentioned. And we're in the ICUs, we were doing COVID, we were doing everything here, which is really awesome. We have a NICU here as well, so we're doing NICU care. The
Mm.
OTs here and their feeding program is pretty strong, although I don't do kids, by choice. Um, I love being an OT. I love that I made that decision. Um, and it's not always, you know, cookies and cream because of the systems that we work within,
Yeah.
and the disparities that I always talk about. But nonetheless, we have those moments with patients and clients that, can't be overstated. It's a
Mm.
real thing where you either accomplishing something or you're teaching them something, and it's just a moment between you and the patient and a complete stranger that's really unmatched in other professions. Like I said, it's that personability, that really that closeness with people, for the betterment of them. And I
Yeah.
learn a lot as a therapist, right? Because as a therapist, we're also teachers, and if we're teaching, as you know, we're also learning.
Yeah.
So I felt, even though I've been doing this for 13 years, I'm still learning. There's still things I have to go and Google about, or, you
Yeah.
know, do my evidence-based research on certain things.
Yay.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm a consultant, so I consult universities and curriculums and healthcare centers on bias and
Wow.
inclusion. Uh, I'm writing a book that's coming out end of the year, beginning of next year, probably, which is similar to what you're doing now. It's a collection of of narratives of people of color and their journey into OT.
That's amazing.
And so, it's my life's work. I've been able to find a way to blend my OT love with my activism that I've always done before.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel this group sort of is really timely in that
Mm.
sense, because our voices is growing as Arabs in the profession. And I feel like we're creating our own voice as opposed to just copying what they've done here.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see us branching out and sort of standing in our own identity of
Mhm.
what occupation means to us.
Right.
Um, so in the gist of it, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm a
Mm.
father and a husband as well, on top of everything else. If we're going to talk about occupations and roles,
Yeah.
my kid's 3.5 years old. And like I mentioned, I'm really working on the ayin with him because mom doesn't speak Arabic.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. So yeah, the ayn and the cough and the kha, I'm working on
Yeah.
I'm working
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
yeah, that's amazing. That is very interesting. It's like I knew a lot about you. Like I knew a lot about you from our students. Our students love you and they love your lectures. And they like, some of them even ask, like, can we hire him? Like you are amazing. And you definitely leave your print and you have great impact. And from what I heard from you, you're doing so much. And we need all of that and some more. So I'm very happy that our paths crossed and like you are part of the group now. And you bet you'll be like on a lot of these episodes for sure, because there's so much experience we can tap into. And like what you
Yeah,
said, you did a lot of OT work, and your identity like is everywhere in these and roles
yeah.
and parts that you took. So which leads me to my next question. How do you feel that your intersectionality of being an OT, and obviously a very passionate one,
Mhm.
with your Arab identity, and also you're very passionate about your identity as an Arab, like how did that intersectionality feel?
Um, so that's kind of a powerful question for me personally, because as I mentioned in the beginning, you called me Ala. Nobody calls me Ala within the profession,
Mm,
or with my clients or patients or coworkers, even my colleagues in school, my professors. No one uses the letter Ain, so it's Allah.
mm,
And so it's, hey, my name is Allah. I'm your occupational therapist today. And ya Rabbak, what you get, right? It's like, and I tell this story all the time because it happens every day. It happened
right.
yesterday. It'll happen later today. I'm sure. Um, I was dropping my kid off at school last week, and I'm excited. It was his third day of school, second day of school. I'm super excited for him. And I met a parent, and he said, "Your name is what?" And he just killed my vibe, you
Yeah.
know. And so I carry that with me, right? Um, and on top of that, there's also a larger thing where we as Arabs in this country, based on our history here, are categorized as actually white.
Mm,
So, despite me feeling the personal attacks and the microaggressions on a daily basis, there's also a sense of privilege that I don't have to deal with other barriers, because
mm,
when I fill out my census, or when I fill out a mortgage application, or when I fill out my school forms or whatever, I'm usually putting other, because
yeah.
that's me.
Yeah.
But I'm not putting black, which is going to be the larger barrier, right? And so I have to compartmentalize that stuff. And sometimes, you know, because it happens so much, my response is always a little bit different, right? I'm better at reading intention. I'm better
Yeah.
at reading sort of, how to navigate different things. Sometimes I
Yeah.
snap because I'm allowed to.
Right.
Sometimes I joke and I say, "Where are you from?" Actually.
Oh yeah. The
Or I'll say,
question.
"What's your heritage?" I'll just flip it on them. Um, so it's a daily obstacle course, if you
Yeah.
will, of being an Arab OT, but also being an Arabi OT named Ala.
Yeah.
And my dad even told me when we were born, our pediatrician was an Egyptian doctor, because he had to be Arab, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he told my dad and my mom, like, yo, he might have a hard time, like,
Yeah.
and all of my brothers' names, all of us, Omar, Imad, Ala, and Ali, كله بحرف العين,
Wow. Yeah.
all with the
We
letter
love
Ain.
Ryan.
But Omar is Omar and Ali is Ali, and it
Yeah.
translates a lot easier than
Right.
Ala,
Right.
right? There's a
Yeah.
lot more Omars and Alis. There's not that many Ala.
Yeah.
And so it's it, in a way it catapulted me into what I'm doing and who I am. And
Mm.
so I carry that with me with pride. But there's also trauma, and there's also
Yeah.
hurt, and there's also a lot of nonsense that I don't want to deal with every day,
Right.
because I'm also a human that wants to eat and work and live and breathe, and I don't want to deal with this every day.
Yeah.
Uh, but I can't shake it. It's who I am. I have a name tag, I have a badge everywhere I go. So when you ask me that question, how do I carry myself within that identity? It's a pretty large and long answer. Uh,
Yeah.
that's the honest truth.
And yeah, and you said it so beautifully, Ala. And like I love how you described it and how you described that, cognitive demand that we'd have to carry, like, and do all day long navigating. Like I
Yeah,
love how you says, like, I know how to navigate things, and think of all that like load, that
yeah,
how much energy it takes from you to just navigate that, something that other people don't have to worry about because of other privilege, like you said.
yeah,
So you said that very beautifully. I thank you for that. But
yeah.
before we move on, like, because we talked a lot about the power of the name,
Mhm.
tell us what the name Ala means.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Ala means excellence, or someone of a high standard. It comes from, my understanding is Ala ad-Din. Salah ad-Din, you've heard of those names, which is Aladdin, which is
Yes.
not helping my case at all, right? Um, so Ala ad-Din, din means is religion in Arabic. So Din means religion, and so the name Ala ad-Din means excellence of religion or higher standard of religion. Um, and so that's what the name Ala means.
Yeah, and my understanding is it also means like social excellence as well, like a high rank in society or something. Okay, well, I love Aladdin, so you could just go by. So it's like it's short for Aladdin.
Yeah, but nobody calls me Ala ad-Din. It's Ala. It's always been Ala. My parents never called me Ala ad-Din.
Yeah.
Just helps describe the name better when I share it.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful name. Wear it with pride, I like to say.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It is. It's a very dope name. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. And I know, from an Arabic perspective, it is a cool name too. Yeah. Like it never gets old.
It's also what do you call it? It's also works with both genders. So there's female named Ala and there's male named Ala.
Yes, gender neutral.
My name is very inclusive.
Exactly. All right. So I think you spoke a lot about, your struggles and negative aspects of that intersectionality. And it is a struggle on a daily basis. Can you find something that is positive that you can talk about? Like, you spoke about, that you wear your identity with pride, and that's lovely. And is there anything positive that you enjoy, it's very dear to your heart about your Arab identity that you can highlight?
So, yeah. So for one, because I live in LA, there is there's more Arab speaking people that I treat. And oftentimes having that connection and carrying that cultural connection into the therapeutic environment with the patient is really awesome. Right. And so oftentimes, it's, how, with OT, I tell students all the time, we got to build rapport. There has to be a trust there, or else you're not going to meet your goals. You're doing really personal things like wiping butts and doing things that are really, nitty gritty in someone's personal life. And so if you can't build trust, you have a problem there. And because of the lack of knowledge and racism and all the things that we're dealing with as Arabs, right? There's a discomfort with our patients as they navigate this medical system. And so it's pretty powerful when I can provide that bridge and help them understand how to navigate what they're about to go through. So, for example, someone comes into the hospital and they have a stroke. Family is not really aware of how things work. Family doesn't go to the doctor that much, right? And you might see therapists or nurses saying how difficult they might be, or they're not compliant, which is, I hate that word, or they're refusing care. They're uncomfortable, right? They're afraid, and it's happened more often where it's meaningful, where I can be that bridge to help them navigate the system that's not meant for them.
Yeah.
So that part's awesome, even on a lighter scale, right? Like, I love za'atar more than anything in the world.
The food,
I don't like hummus that much.
No.
People assume that I do.
Yeah, that's a lot of a stereotype, right?
Yeah, and I've been kind of, now that I have my 3-year-old, I'm really kind of going back to some of the things that I was raised with, some of the music, some of the food, some of the traditions, right? And it's been pretty awesome. Like, we did Depki the other day with my kid, and it was really nice. It was felt nostalgic. It kind of got emotional for me for a little bit, it was heavy. Even with Depki, like you mentioned before, it's the same dance, but there's so many different variations around the Arab world.
Right.
And so it's pretty cool. And so my kid and I do this thing on Friday mornings when we have Arabic class.
Yeah, nice.
And we just do Arabic stuff, And so there's a lot of positive. Nice. And I think the biggest positive of all that I just mentioned is the fact that now I'm proud to be a voice for other Arabs, especially other Arab OTs and other Arabs coming into the OT profession.
Right.
There's a funny story. Like, I met a dude on Twitter, and his name's Alat too. He's OT student, and I reached out to him. I was like, hey man, I got you. Like I don't know who you are, but I got you, and we communicate. And, you know, I mentor him and I help him, and so that's the biggest positive. Is now I can be the
Yeah.
mentor that I wanted when I was, you know, growing up. Because even though my parents meant well, they didn't
Yeah.
know how to navigate what they were doing. They didn't
Right.
know they wanted me to be a certain thing, but they didn't know what it took to be that person. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I wish I had that mentor when I
Yeah.
was younger
Right.
that understood my upbringing and how I walked out of the house speaking Arabic, and then I walked into the classroom speaking English,
Yeah.
and then I walked back home and I'm speaking Arabic. You know, you're code switching one hat to the other.
Right.
And if I had that mentor as an undergrad, as a high school student to kind of help me navigate everything, I would have had a lot less trauma, I think.
Yeah.
And if I could be that person now for others, that's the most positive thing I could do
Yeah.
for our profession and for our people.
Yeah. That's awesome, Ala. And I first bring the other Ala to the group. That's one.
I will. I'll invite him. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Second, I think we have a theme, you know, in all these interviews is the power of representation. I mean, because you're there, someone could identify with you, and you know, we need more. That's why it's like we created this so we can connect together, like and find each other. So please keep doing what you're doing because obviously we need many more Alas out there.
And you know, and if I could interject really quickly, it's a tough balance because even when you don't want to represent yourself because maybe you're not feeling good that day and you don't want to be that Arab in the workforce or you don't want to be that person to represent everything, it's hard,
Yeah.
right? And oftentimes other people's curiosities, you know, sort of intrude into your space when you might not want to, right?
Right.
Like, you know, I made a comment the other day, like it's not the Muslim in your workforce or your colleague who's a Muslim to teach you about Ramadan Islam. That's your job. You gotta go learn. You know, you can go Google it. You know what I mean? Um, and it's not up to me to teach you about Lebanon and its history. And it's not me, it's not up to me to answer your question about the Iraq war, right? Because I'm the only Arab you know in
Yeah.
the workforce. And so it's a delicate balance and it's not always easy.
Right.
And it's not meant for all of us. And so I can't expect somebody else who's named Ala or Imad or Omar to be, you know, as strong willed as I am in the moment, right? It's not fair to judge that. And I'm not going to judge how other Arabs respond to living through these systems. It's
Mm-hmm.
not fair to me to say, hey, why don't you step up, bro? Come on, you can do it. It's
Right.
not fair to do that. It's not fair for the Muslim woman who wears a hijab to answer questions about why she wears it every day. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
You can go Google it, you know?
Right.
Some are very gracious in doing it. Some will offer that education. And by all means, you know, go ahead and do it. But
Mm-hmm.
they're not obligated to help fix your curiosity. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to have that distinction.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. And I always say it's not your job to educate other people about the things that they don't know
Yeah.
because you know the other way is not happening. If we need to learn about something, we will educate ourselves and it's expected. So I totally agree with you. And it's only when you're ready and you feel comfortable and you feel like it, you can educate people. Sometimes make them aware, don't educate them. So I totally agree with you on that.
Because there's a safety issue there, right? There's a safe space
Right.
process there where if you're uncomfortable and you're unsafe,
Yeah.
please, you're not obligated, you know?
True.
Your
True.
safety comes first, always.
And even if you're safe, it's exhausting. And this is
Thank
an
you.
extra
Thank you.
effort that you don't have to go through, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, you know, not all the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
again, like pick the time, pick the place, pick the mental state as well. So well said. I agree. Okay, so this is I think this is a little bit technical one. Can
Okay.
you share because you know sometimes we talk about this and we talk about intersectionality, but for the outsider who is not part of this identity, like how does it look like to them? So can you share with us from your expertise how a non-Arab OT can show cultural humility when
Mhm.
they're treating a client from Arab descent? So what are some of the examples, like you know, quick tips or quick examples? Because you know, it takes a lifetime to be really that culturally humble and
Yeah.
relevant and mindful. But like, a few, like a no-brainers when it comes to how do you deal with a client from Arab descent?
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And so, just like with other, ethnic groups and people of color, when you're treating them, you can't walk into the situation assuming you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the person's Lebanese and Muslim Sunni or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that their experiences are the same as mine.
Yeah.
And so there's differences within us. And so you walk in there willing to learn, even though they are the same as you. So you go in there treating that person as if they're any of everybody else. Now, with that being said, there's a therapeutic use of self in that moment that can help build the rapport, right? But the assumptions shouldn't be made. And so, again, going back to that delicate balance of we're there to learn. It's the patient's goals. It's the client-centered goal, right? It's not what you think should happen with the patient.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, I think this is very important when it comes to Arab identity, and it's pretty common across all Arab nations, is the family in the community, or as we call it, the ummah,
Mm-hmm.
within these individuals, right? Um, we talk a lot about in OT school and the American OT education, how it's client centered,
Mm-hmm.
client centered, client centered. And that's a product of American individualism, right? Independence. I'm gonna do me. This is who I am, right? And this is not unlike other people of color, other ethnicities, right? You got to sort of shift your your way of thinking and your lens to a family centered approach, a community centered approach, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the individual themselves. And I can use an example all the time here in LA, like the sock donor, right? Or the sock aid.
Yeah.
If I don't know how many grandmas looked at me when I showed them a sock donor, like, what the hell? And they would just
You know where
point.
you're going with this.
Yeah. And that's always a classic example, right? Like, and they point at their daughter, their son, their
Right.
grandson and say,
That's what they're there for.
what Binti's gonna do, like, and it's even more now,
Offensive.
it's offensive,
Yeah.
and you get that with abuelitas here in LA. You get that with a lot of other people
Yeah.
who don't identify as a Caucasian or European in descent, right? Um, there's a family involvement there. It's why you see a lot less Arab and Muslims, and you see a lot less people of color in nursing homes as opposed to their white counterparts, because there's a family centered approach to the well-being of the elderly, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, my grandmother, is not doing that great health wise. She's like 91 years old. She's got a lot of issues going on, but she was recently hospitalized, and went home after the hospital with my mom, and she got home health OT. And my mom told me this story, and my mom called me like feeling bad. Like, this OT kind of put her on the spot, because my mom was like doing things for my grandmother,
Yeah.
right? And OT was like, and my mom had mentioned to her, the OT, that my son's OT. And the OT told my mom, your son wouldn't be happy with how you're doing with your mom. She's got to do it herself, you know?
They
So
have no idea.
my mom called me. She's like, what's up with this lady? Like, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, mom.
Yeah.
It's her training. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure. Sure.
please, as long as Sito is comfortable, you do what you need to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
whatever Sito wants, not whatever you want or whatever the OT wants.
Right.
And as long as Sito is making her needs known, and by the way, Sito means grandmother. Well, my grandmother.
Oh yeah.
So as long as Siti's making her needs known and
Yeah.
she's oriented, follow her lead.
Yeah.
Uh, and so culture humility is about a lifelong reflection. And it can't stop with your second or third Arab client. It can't stop with your fourth or fifth Arab client, because your sixth and seventh one are going to be different too. And the
Right.
dialects are different, and the culture is different, and the Muslims are different, and the Christians are different. There's Catholics and there's Christians and there's Jews, and
Yeah.
Arab are very diverse individuals. There's Black Arabs. I mean, you cannot
Yeah.
put us in a pigeonhole the same way you can't put everybody else. You know, it's unfortunate because we live in a world where the media and the systems around us do put us in a box, right?
Yeah.
Without our consent and without our permission, you
Yeah.
know. And when you look at critical race theory, there's a concept of differential racialization,
Mhm.
right? And that means the, the the majority population, which in this case is usually white males,
Mhm.
paint the narrative of how ethnicity should be looked at, and they
Yeah.
make stereotypes. So you know, remember how before 9/11 it was the Arabian Nights, it was belly dance,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
exotic and Aladdin. If you know,
Yeah.
we got carpets and we got camels and you know, we're in desert dwellers and Bedouins
Yeah.
and you know, 9/11 hit and the majority population shifted the narrative into an extremist person,
Mhm.
a radical,
Suppressed community,
oppressed.
oppression.
Yeah, the Muslims are oppressed. The women are oppressed. They have no rights. Kaza,
Mhm.
kaza, kaza, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a shift in the narrative that we didn't control. That's not
Mhm.
our story.
Mhm.
That was what's been told by others about us, you know? And and so despite what you might be learning or seeing on TV, within the media, amongst your colleagues, because even the conversations around Arabs and Muslims is very messed up, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and that goes back to that narrative that we didn't create. You know what I
True.
mean?
Yeah.
Uh, Even within our Arab populations, we start to become guilty of fitting those same stereotypes. We have
Right.
start to have the same anti-blackness and the same anti, you know,
Yeah.
Semitism, if you will. Like we have those things because not because that's who we are, but
Right.
because the
Yeah.
narrative has shifted and without us in control of our own narrative.
Right.
And so groups like this help us share our narrative, right?
Yeah.
This is our story. These are our journeys, right?
Yeah.
And as I always say, the best experience is a lived experience. And nobody is better at telling us what it is to be us than us,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yes.
And
I agree with
so,
you.
yeah, yeah. And so cultural humility is lifelong and
Right. Right.
it's reflecting on you as an individual, your experiences, but also the experiences within systems that you're not in control of. And so
Right.
you have as an individual, especially as an OT, that's
Mhm.
your obligation to learn those things, right? It's not a certificate that you need to check off your box. This is a
Right.
lifelong thing. If you're going to be a good OT, you have to be humble.
Right.
You have to keep learning. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a long answer.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, like I want you to keep talking for hours because like you give perspective like with real examples. You talked about a lot of things that we don't talk enough about. Like you talked about internalized racism that affects us too. We typically talk about that when it comes to race, like you know the Black communities, but it also affects us too. Internalized discrimination and bias and all of that, and it does make a difference if we walk with cultural humility. It does make a difference, not only for us as a community, but also to the entire profession. So, very well said.
Thank you.
All right, I know you have to go. So, my last question to you, and you bet I'm going to come back to you to talk about a lot of more things. Like,
يا
I want
هلا
a copy of that book. I want to talk more about, you know, culture humility. So, I'll be coming back for more.
اهلا
But for
وسهلا بك.
now, yeah. For now, my last question: what is your message to the members of the group, of this group, our Arab OT group, specifically the allies who are part of this group? What is your message to them?
Solidarity, solidarity forever with all of you. I'm proud, and I've become more and more proud every day to live my experience and to walk in my own shoes. And the more I do this work, the more I meet people like you and groups like this. And you know, I got back on Instagram and all these different socials recently, and I'm seeing the voices.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the Instagram handles of Arab OTs. I'm
Mm.
seeing occupations being described in different ways.
Mm.
Seeing the narrative um, breaking glass barriers that weren't created by us, right?
Yeah.
So keep going. And if you need support, help, mentorship, I'm available. Being an OT is like I mentioned, the greatest thing I decided to do, and being an Arab OT is something I'm becoming more and more proud of. And the more we grow, and like I mentioned, the more we share, the more they hear. And
Yeah.
so, let's go. Like, let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Let's go. That's it. Let's go. So we're gonna end with that. That's amazing
As
message.
they say, yalla, you know.
Yalla, yalla, yes, yalla, we have to.
Yep.
Ala, I can't thank you enough for this. This has been like an amazing conversation with you. And again, I'll come back for more. Hopefully, we will see you again soon. Are you going to the conference?
I'm going to be at conference. I'm only going to be there for like 2 days. So Wednesday, Thursday, and the early end of it. As I
Okay,
mentioned, Dad, so I can't keep mom by herself for that long. So,
right. Yeah, yeah.
so I'm gonna go. I'm actually presenting on Thursday, April 20th, with
Okay.
another Arab OT
Hmm.
um, at 2:45 for a short course, um, talking about Islamic practices and mitigating Islamophobia. And
Yeah.
so, please, if you're there, come and attend, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll hunt you down. We will have to connect, and hopefully Ellis can join too. Thank you so much. I look
But
forward to you in
awesome.
person. I've never did that, so I'm really excited
This
for
is
that.
my first conference since COVID, so
That's
be a lot of people I haven't met in person that I've met in the last
yeah,
3 that are yeah,
yeah. It's gonna be fun. That's gonna be
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Ala.
Yeah, Hannah.
I'll come back for more.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.